So, the panel that we have next prepares for a future transformed. This discussion on the biggest leap in human history, AI, will be moderated by Nishant Singh. Nishant Singh is the VP of Strategic Partnerships at the Special Envoy for Business and Philanthropy in the UAE. A Fulbright graduate scholar from Harvard, his experience spans launching innovative higher education and edtech ventures in India, working on state capability and global partnership programs in the USA, and leading interdisciplinary research in South Asia. Robert Coulson, Saju Jain, and Bhanuka Harishchandra will be the speakers for this panel. Robert Coulson is the executive advisor for real estate at Accenture in the UAE. He specializes in corporate and investment strategy, M&A advisory, and portfolio optimization. Coulson is a champion of digital transformation, integrating technologies like agentic AI, blockchain, and immersive experiences into sustainable solutions. Saju Jain has helped build several startups in their early stages that have grown to deliver global impact. His ventures, D-Light Solar Lights, have improved the lives of 150 million people. Embrace's infant warmer has helped over 475,000 babies, and Chirag has illuminated over 700 villages. Bhanuka Harishchandra is a self-taught serial entrepreneur who believes in testing, adapting, and not conforming to set rules. Bhanuka established Surge Global, a design, marketing, and technology firm to focus on the needs of growing businesses in the modern economy. These architects of the AI era are here to answer the billion-dollar question: will AI take our jobs or take us further than ever before?
Another of those multiple AI sessions that perhaps have bored so many of people in the audience over the years. I will push the boundaries here to not make this a conversation about the 30,000 feet view and the 30-year view on AI. We'll talk about the immediate tomorrow. We'll talk about our individual lives being impacted by AI. And we will talk about the difference in the hype, the hyperbole, and the humane part of AI that we should really be caring about in today's conversation. On my panel, we have people from different parts of the world, and they have different views on AI from their respective regions. Saju looks at startups globally while being housed in Bangalore. Robert keeps a keen eye on real estate and AI development from UAE. And Bhanuka has been driving all the digital trends from Sri Lanka. Robert and I also happen to function out of UAE, and we try and understand the world from there as well. So we'll bring in a lot of those perspectives. How many of you have been on a table this year where everyone else apart from you was born after 2000? That's just Carvi, Ursula, and I were on a table today where everyone else was born after 2000. And that's a surprising reality that the movers and shakers of this AI world are often not the people you and I sit and hang out in offices on a daily basis. It's the generation that is coming right behind us, the so-called digital natives. And while we tend to have the attitude of teaching and telling the coming generation how to do better, time and again in every single conversation I've had in schools, I think we need to listen to them far more than they need to listen to us. So I'll kick off the conversation directly with Bhanuka. So Bhanuka, what are you observing in the field of AI from your side of the world? Just take 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think the conversation is quite interesting because there are two factions emerging, and a faction of AI is in everything and will take over everything tomorrow, and it is a complete bubble funded with enormous money, which is ending to an unproductive state. The reality is probably somewhere in the middle, as most things are. The biggest kind of most interesting thing that I see is most people that are talking about AI have very rarely done things in AI, and it is mostly a kind of that 30,000 foot view of what machine learning models should be doing according to their point of view. I think once you kind of start digging into it, you understand that machine learning is not a new thing. It's been here for quite some time. The models and the systems have gotten significantly more sophisticated, and the use cases are now finally emerging. It's a very interesting time where the workflows of yesterday and the workflows designed by the incumbent businesses, be it in technology or outside of technology, are changing. It's the real value, according to what we see in the work that we do, is understanding when that shift is happening and how that shift particularly affects your organization, because you can't really plan 10 years into the future anymore. It's being able to understand the utility value of all of this stuff. How does it impact you today? And how do you navigate those ongoing changes? And really structuring organizations and kind of the day-to-day work we do in order to be agile, to kind of go with that sense of change.
Before moving to Robert, I would like to ask the audience, how many of you have started integrating AI in your daily jobs on a regular basis? And how many of you use ChatGPT almost on a daily basis? Okay, roughly 50% of the room. Robert, moving on to you. You are based in a country that has been leveraging AI as a diplomatic force for good as well. Tell us what's happening in UAE in AI.
So the UAE is most certainly forward-leaning, right? When it comes to AI, there's a huge amount of investment happening there, as well as in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of focus on building out the compute infrastructure that's needed, which means data centers, and more data centers, right? But that takes time. And so as the business is learning how to ingest AI as a operating system, and that's how I think of AI from the enterprise context, is it's a new business operating system, a new operating model. And it's going to take time for businesses and governments to come around to how do I provide services, not in the way that I used to, but how am I going to provide those services in the new economy? So as these data center infrastructure are getting built out, there's still time for catch up. Once that infrastructure is in place, I think you'll start seeing a lot more change involved, especially countries like the UAE, which are leading in the investment, will have a competitive advantage.
Before moving to Saju, how many of you came across the MIT report that said that despite 30 to 40 billion dollars of enterprise investments in generative AI tools, the return on majority of them has been more than 95% of organizations have had 0% returns on them. That's one, two, three, four. Saju, you have been traveling the world. You have been the guy who has been forcing the Harvard Club of Bangalore to really think very deeply, almost borderline scarily about AI. Tell us, what have you been watching on your travels?
Sure. So I've been mentoring startups across the world that are primarily AI first startups. And what I see, what I've seen in the last few years and what I saw on my last trip to the Bay Area genuinely scares me. For some of you who do know me, but this is going to be repetition, but I started my first business when I was 18 years old in a garage assembling computers. So I was always, I prided myself on being on the cutting edge of technology, right? No matter what happened with the internet, cloud computing, e-commerce, mobile commerce, I'm like, yeah, I know, what's the cutting edge. I can understand the cutting edge. The average cycle before things got outdated was 3 years. So you had 3 years to kind of develop the next product that you wanted. You had 3 years to extract value out of what you had spent research and development dollars and time building. And that was your kind of cycle that you ran on. Today, that's 6 months. And there are people who are basically investing insane amounts of money to reduce that even further. and it's actually starting to come down. The cost of developing software. Now, I'll be upfront. I cannot write a line of code to save my life. If you say, please just write one line of code, that's enough. I can't do that. But in the last year, I have built several apps myself. I have helped people within our community build apps, understand what automation is, build automation workflows. It is scary what you can do today with just, I would say, if there was a level 1 to level 10, even a level 3 knowledge of AI. So to me, what I see is, and this is probably what I'll kind of leave you guys to think about. I was in a Waymo, which is like an automated self-driving car, with a CTO of a significantly large AI company, and we were talking about this. Now I've been saying this a lot, but he turned on and told me, Saju, you're still thinking linear. The only way this is going to make sense is you've got to start thinking exponential, which means an ever increasing rate of change that is never going to slow down, never going to pause. It's only going to get faster.
Bhanuka, I want to pick on one of the points that you said, and it was repeated in one of the previous sessions as well, that often the people who are theorizing about AI and the future of AI are the ones who end up using it the least. So I want to throw this open to all the panelists and tell us about your daily use case of AI. Where all do you use? What all tools do you use in your personal and professional life on a regular basis?
So I'll start with the professional first, and then kind of move on to the personal. So we run a technology business that helps organizations essentially kind of develop tools and products. And AI has gotten to this point where, like Saju said, you can write a prompt and kind of build a piece of code. There's elements of our business, fortunately for us, we've made millions of dollars in the business of fixing said AI-driven code. Now, that doesn't mean that it's non-productive. It just means that the state of AI today, it doesn't produce enterprise-grade technology that can be used at scale. It'll probably get there. The interesting thing is, like I said, the main thing that has changed for us is the workflow. The way we prototype things, the way we short circuit ideas is we don't run a 12-week sprint to figure out, hey, is this a good idea or not? We do it somewhat overnight. We can throw something against the wall and see if it sticks very quickly. There's a good and a bad here. The good is that you are able to prototype and get something out super quickly. The bad is so can everyone else. And when you're in, the main thing that has changed for us professionally is, I think, those that don't typically use AI have a really interesting understanding, or the expectations from AI are remarkable. We have people that come to us and say, hey, can you build XYZ in a day, a week, a month? Which, if the same person 2 years ago would not ask that, and the reason they're asking this question, they've been bombarded with social media saying, here's this magic button, this will solve all your problems. So it's kind of interesting to understand that nuance as well, right? Doesn't mean our productivity has gone up ridiculously well. But the literal use of that productivity change versus kind of the market's expectation, I think there's a significant gap. On a daily basis, everything from kind of synthesizing documents so that we can read it easier, and just kind of running analysis. We use the ChatGPT pros and all of that stuff. The problem is, it's also quite wrong a fairly large amount of the time. If any one of you reads a financial report or like a quarterly statement, put it on ChatGPT, get some information, and you realize it is guessing. And that is the problem functionally of an LLM. It's a conversational model that's designed to have wonderful conversations. But it's not intelligence, right? It is essentially a corpus of data regurgitating something until it sounds nice. So the real interesting thing is understanding where that balance is, what is useful kind of productivity versus what is actually just noise that's produced that you have to go back and fix is really the interesting part. But because there is such a market demand, everyone is always trying to build it. So for us, we have data science and research teams that are trying to work together with those kind of aspirational founders that are building that next generation of AI. We are building tools and systems ourselves, going to market faster. But again, the more complicated thing is that the expectations from the customers, the stakeholders at large has fundamentally shifted, and it continues to shift every day.
So one of the themes I picked up from what you were saying was the use of AI to shorten the turnaround time and increasing the productivity. And this was a conversation I was having with Robert just before we came on stage that I like to throw open to the audience that with all the time that you're saving using generative AI tools, what are you doing with that time? Just shoot your answers. Getting more work. Robert and I were discussing that if we can use ChatGPT or our AI agents to do half of our work, automate it, both of us would like to probably put down a property in Sri Lanka and spend more time here.
Yeah, the expectation is that we spend more time on the beach, so we have more time to sip our Mai Tais. But the reality is there's a higher expectation to get things done. So like myself and even my team, we build out our own workflows, AI workflows. There's good parts to that. There's some scary parts to that. One of which is the traditional way that you would train the junior staff. That's going away, right? Because a lot of that task-oriented work where they gain experience is getting commoditized through the AI workflows. So we're facing some challenges about how do we train a younger generation to get experience so that they can continue the business model. And in other ways, we're looking forward to if we can do this cheaper, we can do this faster than we used to. What are the other challenges that are going to be out there? On one side, I think it's quite scary. When we look at agentic AI implementations, we're looking now at, do you have an established GBS function in your enterprise? If you do, you're data ready, more data ready than you would be otherwise. And then let's freeze all hiring and let's start ramping down, right? We want to eat more business. We want to eat more market share. And we want to be able to extract that value and increase the flywheel effect. So that has a detrimental impact to other organizations in the marketplace, but it does create a lot of value. So where does that value get allocated? And that's the big question I think we haven't really discussed as a society yet in these different economies. And perhaps that means that we drive quality, and so we all enjoy a higher level of service. But then what else is there to do? What else do we need as a society? And that's a question that's still out there right now.
Saju, because you have been working with a lot of entrepreneurs who've been shortening their turnaround times as well, and you've been part of many AI-first startups deals as well. I want you to respond to what Robert has been talking about, that how AI is being leveraged to improve the quality of output. And where are we headed with all this quality and quantity of time that we are saving? Is it just going and churning out more and more businesses? Or is our overall quality of life improving by integrating AI in our lives?
So I think that's a very personal choice that all of us will have to make, right? Because 101% using AI correctly, and I emphasize correctly, will save you a lot of time. Let me give you an example of what I'm seeing in the world, and I'll also share something that I am doing as well. So one is, I was wrong about something, very early on, I remember looking at a speech from the father of AI. I forget his name because I think once you cross my age, names are the first thing that go right out of the window. And the father of AI, he's generally, you say father of AI and put Google and it'll tell you who it is. He said, we should stop training radiologists because AI is now so good that it can do the job of a radiologist better than a radiologist can. And I believed him because I spoke to my family members who are also doctors, who are radiologists, and they were telling me, yes, in our hospital, uh, almost 90% of the diagnosis work is done by an AI, but they still require a human in the loop for liability purposes to just ensure, because nobody is going to accept a radiology diagnosis given by a machine. They need a human to say, a doctor to say, yes, this is correct, right? But 90% is coming. So I said, yes, that is what it is. And I publicly, if you, there's some videos of me talking about the fact that radiology is an outdated profession. Guess what? I was definitely wrong about this. Radiologists have now is become the most in-demand profession out there. It's called the Jovian paradox, I think, or the look it up. It's the Jovian paradox. Basically, because the diagnosis has become so fast and so cheap, doctors and more are prescribing saying, get a radiology scan done, get a radiology. Where before they would say, it's so expensive, let's not do it unless it's absolutely required. Now they're just doing it helter and skelter. Guess what? You still need radiologists at the end to diagnose and say yes. And what does a radiologist do beyond just diagnosing the scan? He explains it to the patient saying, this is what your scan means. If you're fine, normal, great, you're done. But now the radiologist is able to spend time with the patient when they have a positive diagnosis for some ailment and explain to them what the scan means. So we are seeing now a growing demand for radiologists. So I would really urge people to start thinking very counterintuitively to what's happening. Now, when you asked us about our tools, right, and this is about the kind of stuff that we are doing, what with agentic AI, I mentor startups, and one of the things they love to do is give me an email ID as soon as possible. So it's Sajju at whatever the startup's name.com, right? And to a point where I have lost track of, the last time I counted, there was 18 email IDs that I had, and there's no way I can keep track of them. And so eventually when AI shows up with great effort and a lot of trial and error, finally we were able to build an agent that would go into had access to my Gmail. By the way, that is outdated now because with the latest operator, what's it called, the agentic tool that OpenAI has launched. But I was able to basically create an agent with zero coding experience where it went into all my email IDs, looked at the emails that were there in my inbox, could read all previous content from that sender, and draft a reply ready for those that were not classified as promotions or updates. So there was a criteria for like who you respond back to, but it would have a reply ready. Now, I disabled the auto send part because I wanted to read with somebody getting an email from me, what the hell was the email? But guess what? In 90+% of the cases, it was a super good reply. All I had to do was hit send. So to your answer, there's a lot that you can do with AI.
I tried doing something very similar because most of our boarding passes and flight tickets are on Gmails, and sometimes finding them is a pain. Gemini is still trying to evolve where it can capture the information from your boarding pass and display it to you exactly. So a tool like that would actually help me save a lot of cognitive effort that goes into just looking for things, searching for information that should be readily available. To your question about radiology and how the field of radiology is getting impacted, I would love for all of you to have a conversation with Ursula here, who's coincidentally a medical physics PhD student as well. And just before coming on the stage, we were having exactly the same conversation about how it was predicted that radiologists' job will be the first one to be taken away. And Ursula made a very important point that you cannot remove the human factor completely out of medical diagnostics. Moving to the next section about the talent development for AI. I know this is a Harvard conference, a there will be a panel on human capital development as well. Many of us who were born in the 90s, we already feel we are feeling left behind. Many of us have been mentored by those who were born in the 60s and 70s, who are already talking about the need to invest in building AI talent from school itself. Uh, I want to talk, I want each of the panelists to talk about how are you investing in developing AI talent in your regions.
Well, I'll start us
Robert?
off. Yeah, I'm happy to. So I work in a large enterprise, so there already is quite a bit of investment in AI training. In fact, a lot of it's mandatory. And the company is looking forward and saying, if you are not AI trained, you're not really aligned with our mission. On top of that, I understand that with the teams that are actually implementing the work, we need to come up with bespoke ways to use AI. That means we have to decompose our tasks in such a way that we can pass off certain tasks to the AI, and we then become the coordinators of the work and the interpreters of the work. And this work is generally around strategy consulting, right? So like the radiologists, the expectation is that strategy consultants go away, McKinsey goes away, Accenture goes away to a great extent. But the reality is we now can deploy a lot more work, have a lot more depth and insights, and that takes us further downstream with our clients towards implementation. So we start, for example, we're working with NVIDIA quite a bit in their Omniverse capabilities, and how do we use Vision AI and deploy that into operating environments to detect, use Gen AI to describe issues and deploy workforce, and that becomes more efficient, right? And so now you can do more with less, but it tends to be on the more side. Rather than saying demand is capped, there's a lot of pent-up demand that's unrecognized. And so you have a lot of shadow inventory that's still there for the workforce. So that's how we're doing it at Accenture, at least. And I think other firms are probably doing that as well.
Bhanuka?
So I think the development is quite interesting because we don't have a fixed program for AI development. For us, we are in the consulting business, and essentially talent development is the business we're in, right? What we sell is talent. What we've noticed is fundamentally your utilization of a tool or system comes down to your ability to think critically. And if you can build teams that are able to understand and dissect problems, they tend to be the types of people that leverage AI quite well, because functionally it's the same thing. So we don't try to look at, okay, we want to be AI ready, so here's a program that we are developing to make students or make talent better in the face of utilizing AI. Is, when you give a person a problem, how do they identify the problem? How do they deconstruct that problem and then derive a solution? So we really only look at it from a critical thinking point of view. And if they're able to think critically more often than not, AI becomes a massive force multiplier for them, as opposed to, the last thing, and this is more of a personal view, the last thing that you want to do is to build a framework around AI and say, here's how you should be thinking about AI. Because it's functionally wrong and it's going to be obsolete it's a matter of when, right? So all kind of hires and talent that we nurture is kind of baked in that, do you understand how to look at a problem, how to think about it critically, how to deconstruct it, and then generate some sort of outcome from it? And I think I have a very strong view that that's really all that matters, especially going forward. I think that becomes the single variable in all of these things.
Before I come to Saju, one of the conversations Suraj and Renu we were having yesterday was kids actually coming up and asking, why do we need to go to the university? And that's a question that often baffles us, because what is it that a university education or a school education is providing, minus the community experience, that these platforms can't? And taking that strand forward to Saju, who also serves as the regional head for Harvard Alumni Association, where is Harvard in the whole AI race? What are your views on that? I just came back from Boston. I heard very differing views from there as well. So, where do you see Harvard heading in this AI race?
Really behind the curve, big time. I mean, we are, as the Harvard community, now our folks from Bangalore know we've been doing a AI workshop for the last few months. We call it AI for decision makers. And the only reason I decided to do that and have our members come and do this every month was because I could very clearly see I was working with people who came from MIT, people who came from Stanford, and we were behind. Like, I don't want to say how behind, but we were behind. And it felt very strongly that, for decision making, if you really truly do not understand what AI is, what I have seen most people do is use AI as if we were using a supercomputer to do our school homework. That's how we're using AI today. We are barely scratching the surface of this potential. And, it's surprising to see the fact that people are making, everybody talks about this AI bubble, and I kind of had the stat that I wanted to kind of share with, and sorry, I took the phone, it was because of this. This is the AI bubble, and this is a very nice study done. The AI bubble is 17 times, that is 1,700%, 17x, right? 1,700% bigger than the dot-com bubble as it stands today, and 400% bigger than the 2008 financial crisis. Guess what? Everybody, including those who are putting the money in and people who are cutting those checks, know this. They say this. This entire last trip that I was in the Bay Area, not a single person said it's not a bubble. But everybody knows that every time there's been a bubble, when the bubble bursts, yes, tremendous amount of value is destroyed, but also what remains is the seed for the next massive multiplier. Think about the dot-com bubble, right? Who were the winners of the dot-com bubble? I think one name would pop out to everybody. Everybody would say Amazon. Well, take a look. All right, Amazon has pretty much changed the way all of us shop. So there is going to be a bubble burst. Guess what? Everybody knows it, including the people whose money is on the line. What they're expecting is when that bubble bursts and what remains is going to take this to another level in itself. And we're not, again, don't think linear. I'm going to say it again, think exponential.
Asanka has been telling me that our time is almost up. I just want to take one last question and leave this for the audience. The year is about to end. We are going to enter 2026. What is one advice or what is one tip that you would give to the audience that they should focus on regardless of where the bubble is headed in 2026? Just take a minute. Robert.
So my advice is to be in a continuous learning mode for the next few years. The industry is changing very rapidly. If you can understand the core concepts, to be quite frank, I remember service-oriented architecture is going to change the world. Well, what we have today is just an enhanced version of service-oriented architecture. So if you understand the base components of what's happening, stay in a continuous learning mode, you'll be ready for that next phase.
I think the kind of as an operator in your kind of relative lines of work, the single most important thing will probably be your ability to separate the noise, because with everything that's going on, and part of the outcome of a bubble is you will be pressured into making decisions that you probably don't feel like are the right ones. And your ability to understand what is noise and what is not is going to help you kind of navigate that space. And I think that's incredibly important.
Saju?
I kind of agree with what Banuka said, right? Differentiate the signal from the noise. One thing I would strongly advise against, and this is something that I have now been part of, I would say, 4 big bubbles, four kind of cycles. The biggest losers are those who basically say, oh, this is not going to affect my job, my career, my industry in any which way, right? The ostrich who puts the head under the underground, and it's like, oh, this is not going to affect. I'm going to just share a couple of quick things that I saw on this trip. You can now, if you're in San Francisco, place an order for 2026 delivery for a robot house help for $500 per month. Now, typical software engineers make about $20,000 to $30,000 a month, right? That's kind of broad range. I'm talking of where there are people who are making ridiculous numbers right now in the valley. Let's not even talk about those guys. But let's just say that you're an average. You're making about 250,000, 360,000. You're making $20,000, $30,000 a month. What do you think a $500 per month, 24/7 available house help is going to be valued to you? Today, it's going to do, in 2026, when it's delivered, it's going to do 80% of your house chores autonomously and maybe 20% teleoperated. There is going to be some complexity. There's going to be a learning curve. But that is going to keep going down. It's going to be, within 3 years' time, you're going to have a completely functional, autonomous house help that not just does the cleaning as promised today, but at some later stage also do your cooking. Now, I know from fact that, an upper middle class house in India, 35,000, 25,000, 50,000 is about what you spend for different types of house help. Guess what? This is 50,000 rupees or $500 is the launch price of the technology. And what do we all know about technology? The price always comes down. If $500 is the launch price, it's not going to be very far away that it's going to be $200. And then a lot of people who are telling, I see this ad on in the US saying that, the techies and all those jobs are gone, the digital jobs are gone, but the plumbers and the carpenters and all are safe. Absolutely not. Every job in this world is on the line, because when you combine robotics with vision and artificial intelligence, there isn't a job that it can't do. Now, we haven't got the time to talk about AGI and ASI, but the world that we are heading towards, the reason right now, I think the number is like $1.5 trillion has been spent just this year. $1.5 trillion is like freaking, almost half of India's GDP has been spent this year, and the number of amounts have been committed for the next like 5-7 years is $7 trillion. And we say 7 trillion as if it's like nothing, but dude, $1 billion is 1,000 million. And a trillion is 1,000 billion. Now multiply that by 7. See the insane amount of money that's going into this technology. It's an arms race towards AGI. And I hope, can we just take 30 seconds to talk about what AGI is? Right? I'm going to give the simplest possible explanation of what AGI is. Gen AI, generative AI, as we all use ChatGPT, is basically the world's most sophisticated autocomplete, where it's just giving you the next possible word. It's taking, suppose you give it a prompt of 15 words or say 100 words. It takes that prompt, generates an output, and then takes the next word, and the next word is just basically taking, let's say the output is 10 words, it takes 10 words, puts it back, generates the 11th word, takes 11th words, put it back, gets the 12th word, and so on. So it's just generating the next possible word. It's got no intelligence in it whatsoever. Generative AI has been, the simplest possible way of looking at it is human level intelligence. And now let me shock you guys a little bit. It's not human level intelligence in sense that, the average human intelligence. Take a neurologist, take a carpenter, take a bus conductor, take any profession on the planet. It's the best of that, but all of it put together in one brain. It's going to be the world's best plumber, the world's best neurologist, the world's best music composer, the world's best whatever, but in one brain. And that's AGI. And that's what all this money is in an arms race to reach. Whichever company reaches AGI first is basically going to dominate, well, the world. And as we were talking about exponential, from AGI, there's a next level, it's called ASI, which is artificial superintelligence. And the jump is going to be about maybe 2 to 3 years. And at that point, do we as human beings care about ants? We don't. When ASI happens, then basically we'll be the ants.
There's probably two
On
things.
that very optimistic note.
There's probably two outcomes from that. One is probably a nuclear war, or second is universal basic income. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, there are, well, that's a whole different conversation in itself.
Thank you so much, panelists, for this cautionary conversation, as well as leaving the people with a sense of hope that all is not lost, that they have to be prepared.
That's the message you took out of this?
I do hope that by next year, whatever developments in AI happens, many in the room will ping each of you and say, in BBB Sri Lanka, you said it so. That note, thank you so much. And please catch the panelists on the sidelines over the next 2-3 days and continue the conversation.
This is one time when I'm hoping I am wrong about this. If I was hoping I was wrong, this is where I'm hoping I'm wrong.
Magna, can you please come and end our guest?